Commissioner Miller. Hi, Commissioner Miller. I see you here. Appreciate you joining the call tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Todd, and thank you, Commissioner Went, for putting this together. Good to see you, Assessor Maloney, as well.
Thank you.
I just want to thank everyone for joining. We know that we have an unfair tax burden out here in the south suburbs, and it's really been disproportionately affecting all of us for decades. We've had lots of data to address this, so programs like this are helpful to homeowners. I'm glad that there's people on here. We've been making steady progress on revamping the tax system and the property tax reform, including, as it relates to the accurate assessment of our properties. But it doesn't mean it's perfect, and the assessor does his job. We thank the Board of Review for serving this vital function, and it's great to be here with all of you tonight.
Thank you. We're excited that you could join too. It's really important for the electeds to get out and advocate for this process of appealing your taxes at the assessor level or at our level, the Board of Review. So really appreciate you've always been a supporter of the Board of Review. So thank you very much. I just want to mention Commissioner Went is not here tonight. She has a family medical issue that she's dealing with. So she sends her regards, and we're sorry that she couldn't make it tonight. I know some people wanted to see and talk to her. So we did have Commissioner Morrison. I'm not sure if he was able to get on or not.
I'm sorry, Todd. He's also got an unavoidable something that came up. He's not going to be able to make it on, but I'm Kathy Hilton. Our office also assists with property tax appeals, and thank you very much to the Board of Review.
Thank you. Thank you to Commissioner Morrison's office for always being an advocate also for the Board of Review. So tonight there's always this question, how do we make property taxes and talking about property tax appeals fun and not as boring and dry as it really seems. So we think that we put together a pretty good presentation. It's not super long, so I don't want anyone to be bored to death and their eyes glaze over. The presentation will be about 25-30 minutes. Which will leave us time for question and answers. So hopefully you stick around. There's also the chat function in Zoom. And if you throw your questions in the chat function, we have a few folks on here from the Board of Review office too that will help answer your questions through the chat function if you have to leave. We'll also provide this slide deck and possibly a recording of this event to the assessor's office and to the commissioner's office that they could post on their sites as well. So if you want to go back and reference something, you'll have that opportunity. So I'm going to jump right into it. My name is Todd Thielemann. I am the Chief of Staff for Commissioner Tammy Went, and we live, eat, and breathe property taxes at the Board of Review. This is all we do. We are here. We're advocates for you. You, as government employees, we work for you. You pay our salaries. That property tax you pay, goes to the school districts, goes to the taxing bodies, but also part of it goes to the Board of Review. So feel free to reach out to us at any time. We're going to have several ways to communicate with us and contact us. We'll show that at the end of the presentation here. Again, thank you for Assessor Morrison, Commissioner Miller, and Commissioner Morrison for helping us put this together and getting out to their constituents. So the first thing we're going to start with is really what is the Board of Review? People confuse the Board of Review sometimes with the assessor's office. They think they appealed and they appealed at one and they didn't appeal at the other, and they missed their opportunity to appeal at one or both. So we're going to go through that. So we're a separate agency than the assessor. We are kind of that second tier for you to appeal your property taxes. The assessor being in the first tier, they're the ones that will assess your property. And if you don't agree with that, we are the appellant court for you to come present your evidence, present your case, where we can possibly reduce your assessment. Now, we will not be proactive in filing appeals for you. We can't get jurisdiction of your property until you give it to us, and that is done by filing an appeal. Once you file an appeal, we can take a look at it. As a residential property owner, if your property or your home is not in a corporation, you can appeal it yourself. You do not need to hire an attorney. Attorneys are only required if it's a corporation or commercial property under a corporation. So you do not need to hire an attorney. You could do it yourself. It's free, and we're going to help you with the process tonight. So the potential benefits are appealing are, one, money, right? I want to save money. My taxes are too high. How can I reduce my tax burden? And one of the easiest ways is through an appeal if you think your property is overassessed. You have the opportunity for multi-year savings, and that has to do with the way the property tax cycle is. It's called a triennial. So the assessor will value Cook County on a triennial schedule, meaning they'll do a third of the county every year. So this year happens to be the Chicago triennial. So the whole city of Chicago is being revalued this year. Last year, as most of you should know, was the South triennial. So last year is when you got your notices from the assessor saying, hey, here's your assessed value. If you want to appeal it, you could, and you could appeal it at the assessor. And then later in the year was your opportunity to appeal it with us. If you appealed it last year and you won, you received a decrease in your assessed value, that lower assessment is going to carry over until the next try. So theoretically 3 years. Now you could win a reduction every year. So by all means, you can keep appealing. And the reason behind that is real estate changes. Probably in this environment, it's probably increasing in many areas. So this may be one of those years where filing every year may not be as prudent as it had been in the past, but it's your option. It's your constitutional right, really, to appeal your tax. Again, there's no fee to file at the Board of Review. If anyone tries to collect any money from you to do this service and they're a county employee, turn them in. Call my office, let me know. There's no tolerance for anything like that. And the Board of Review will never increase your assessment. People have a fear of, if they file an appeal, it's going to put a microscope on my property. I don't want the government looking in my house, looking in my windows, seeing what kind of, I have a granite countertop. That's not what's going to happen to the Board of Review. We actually don't even have field agents. So we don't go out and look at properties like the assessor would. So we'll never increase your assessment. At the very least, we'll do nothing. We'll say we think your property is fairly assessed. But if the evidence is there, we will reduce your assessment. One of the misconceptions, though, is that a reduced assessment may or will always reduce your property tax burden. That's not necessarily the case either. Many years, the assessed value of properties will not change, but as you all are aware, your property tax probably increases. So it's really the taxing bodies and their request for funds to operate their agencies is what drives the actual cost of property tax. So the assessment is just that first part of it, and we want to show you how to appeal that. So this is a slide. It goes a little bit over the triennial reassessment calendar. So we have about 2 million properties in Cook County, and it would be impossible for the assessor to look at it every year. So this triennial assessment was built in the property tax code. So we do it every 3 years. Either the city of Chicago, the north suburbs, or the south suburbs will get reassessed. Next year, it's going to be the north suburbs. The assessor has a different job than the Board of Review. The assessor looks at properties on what's called a mass appraisal basis. So they take a lot of data from sales and rents and listings and things like that, and they feed them into the computer, and the artificial intelligence will pop out values. So you can imagine in a system like that, it's possible to have some mistakes. Now, that data they put in isn't 1 year, it's several years, and that smooths out any big variations. A lot of people are worried about the increase in property value right now. What is that going to mean for their taxes going forward? It's not going to be a 1 year sticker shock. They're going to use several years, and it'll smooth out things like that. So, I'll forecast that it probably isn't going to go down, but I don't think it's going to go up as much as people think. The advantage of appealing at the Board of Review, as opposed to the assessor, is once we get jurisdiction, once you file that appeal, we could take a look at your property individually. So we could drill down into your house, the classifications of your house, the style of your house, the houses around you, your neighborhood, your block, and we could that will eliminate some of those errors of the mass appraisal system. So that's why appealing at the Board of Review is really important, because we can take a closer look at your property. Here's the schedule. So as you can see, 2021 is the year of Chicago. Most people don't realize that Chicago is broken up into townships. So these are neighborhoods for a lot of people that you realize, Hyde Park and Lakeview and Rogers Park, but there's also just north, south, west, and Lake Township. So a lot of people are familiar with the Beverly neighborhood, that's Lake Township. Mount Greenwood is Lake Township. And then you'll see in the south suburbs the north suburbs will be next year, 2022, and so on. So those are all the townships in those in that reassessment calendar. So what are the grounds for appeal? People say, this is, hey, what am I doing? People come to me all the time. Hey, I'm paying too much in taxes. What could I do? I think my house is overassessed. And the first question I tell people to ask themselves is, what do you think you could sell your house for? As a property owner, you know your home better than anybody else, better than the assessor, better than the Board of Review. You know your home, you know your property, you know your neighborhood. So ask yourself, is my assessed value more or less what I think I could sell it for? That's the first place to start. If your fair market value according to the assessor is $125,000, but you think you could sell your house for $150,000, that's what they're going for in your neighborhood, you really don't have grounds for appeal. By all means, you can. It just might be a lost cause at that point. So first thing I always say is ask yourself what you can sell your house for. Beyond that, the grounds for appeal is usually, there's four main grounds for appeal: lack of uniformity, a purchase that occurred in the last 3 years, an error, or vacancy. I'm going to go over each of these real quick. So lack of uniformity, that's, I have a Cape Cod, and all the neighbors around me have Cape Cods, and I have the highest assessed value of all my neighbors. You're probably not uniform. So uniformity is where all the houses, the same characteristics in the same neighborhood, same classification code, are all close in assessments. And when I say close, I mean they're probably going to vary by a few cents a square foot, but they're all going to be pretty close. If you find yourself an outlier in that neighborhood, there's a good chance you're likely have a grounds for appeal. But if you're on the outlier on the lower side, you may not have a ground for appeal. Recent purchase. So if the purchase was in the last 3 years and it's what we call an arm's length sale, meaning you didn't purchase it from your parents or your cousin or your brother or anything like that. It was a marketed sale. There was no duress involved. Sometimes foreclosures, short sales, things like that, they will affect whether it's a fair market or an arm's length sale. So those are good for 3 years. If you purchase a piece of property and you purchase it for $150,000 and the assessor has it valued at $200,000, there's a good chance that you are due a reduction based on that purchase price. Factual error. This doesn't happen that often, but I've actually had 2 cases recently that have come up. One was a 3-flat. There was 4 buildings, likely all built at the same time, and probably all by the same builder. I didn't check the builder on them. And one of the buildings had a square footage of 3,600 square feet. And the owner, I met him in an outreach, and he said, hey, I don't understand why I have the highest taxes. I own 1 building out of 4, and the other 3 buildings pay a lot less in taxes and they have a lot less square feet. And he said this has been like this for 10 years and no one has ever been able to help him. So what we did was, we have some satellite imagery we can look at. So I confirmed that all 4 properties were the exact same, down to the little cutout on the back where there's a little stoop. Just by measuring it from the satellite imagery we have, they had it like he had an additional floor on it, almost like it was a 4-flat. So I helped him get his evidence together. Actually, we found his closing papers from 10 years ago. It had the appraisal on there that had the square footage. It had the plat of survey. So I helped to put all this evidence together and submit it to the Board of Review. So the Board of Review is not in the position to change characteristics. So a factual error, when it comes to the Board of Review, we need a lot of evidence to justify it. And we can only do it for 1 year only, because those characteristics really have to be changed by the assessor. So I was able to order a field check by the assessor. So they're going to go out and take care of it for years forward. I mean, hopefully there's enough evidence where we'll get a majority decision on it. And I'll tell you why that's important in a couple minutes. The other item would be vacancy. Think of these of act of God. So fire, flood, demolitions, things like that. If you can't live in your house for a certain amount of time, you can get relief from property tax on that. And I'll tell you what you need to kind of prove that in a sec. So what to include in your residential appeal. With comparable properties, this is one of those things that people get really stressed about, trying to find comps. What's a good comp in my neighborhood? I can't do this. This is where the assessor really could help you, Assessor Maloney. The commissioners, Morrison and Miller, can also help you with this in their office. They can help you find comparables. But don't get hung up on that. We also have a comparable system within our office. And this happens. A lot of people, they just don't have the background to do it or search for it, or they're overwhelmed and they hand in an appeal without comparables. We will find the comparables for you. We have a robust system. We can cast a small net. We can cast a wide net, just depending on the uniqueness of your house, of your property. If your house is really unique, comparables, if you provide with comparables to the Board of Review, that could really help us. If you have a cookie cutter house in your neighborhood, it's probably even less important. Comparable sales. We rely on a couple different agencies within Cook County to get us sales data. We don't always have that up to date and fresh. So if there's sales happen in your neighborhood, we may not know about them. So if you can include those with your appeal, that would be of great help. This is that factual error part where if you have drawings, plats of survey, things like that, we would need that to help with your appeal. And then vacancy. So if you had a fire or a flood or something, we need vacancy affidavits, we need photographs. And when I say photograph, you just take a Sharpie and write the date on the photograph. Insurance claims, building permits, things like that. When you get an occupancy permit, when you're allowed to go back in, proof of payments of those building permits and things like that. So if you do want to get crazy and you do want to go look for comparables, there's a couple of good systems out there that are sponsored by Cook County. One is cookcountyviewer.gov. It's a pretty robust system. It acts like a Google Earth, where you can put in, you can search a property by PIN or by address. If you don't know the address, you can go in there and find property. And the whole property tax system in Illinois is pretty transparent. You can look at the tax bills for every property in your neighborhood. You can look at the history of that property, the assessed values. You can look at the ownership of the properties. It's a very transparent system, and that's by design. We don't want anything to be, kind of hidden behind curtains and things like that. So the property tax system in Cook County is really transparent. So like I said, this is the cookcountyviewer.com. If you go to the assessor's website, cookcountyassessor.com, there's also a comp tool in there. If you go under the all forms and tools, you can find a comp system there. And you can provide, and that will give you the ability to download some PDF forms and include that in your appeal. And there's two ways to file at the Board of Review. You can do it electronically, or you can do it on paper, the old-fashioned way. We still take both. I would say last year, I think we had 90+% of the appeals were done digitally, and that was done through boardofreview.com. And one of the things that we're really trying to impress on people is the value of registering at the Board of Review. So registration of the Board of Review is really simple. We just need a few things of data, and I'm going to run through that in a second. But the advantage of registering at the Board of Review is great. We send emails out when your township's open, when your townships are going to close, when decisions are made. We will tell you, hey, the decision is ready for you to look at. Now you have to log into your account to see the decision, and likely you're going to get a letter in the mail as well. But you don't have to wait for that mail to show up. You can register at any time. Palos Township right now is not open at the Board of Review, but it's in what we call pre-file. So you can register and pre-file your appeal, and then you don't have to worry about that 30-day window. And I'll touch on that in a sec here too. So you go to boardofreview.com. This is kind of our splash page, the first page you're going to see when you go to the website. up in the right-hand corner in the orange is submit appeal. Now it's not really intuitive. I wish we need to revamp this this website, but just bear with me on this, follow along. So you're going to submit appeal. It's going to take you to this next screen. Now, if you had never registered before, you're going to create an account. If you had registered before, but you don't remember your username and password, not an issue, but it's not a fancy system either where you can press a button and it says, you know, forgot user or forgot passwords like a lot of websites have. So we do it the old fashioned way. You're going to have to call us and have it reset. I'll give you that phone number in a second. If you want to submit an appeal as a guest, you can. So that third box there, submit appeal as a guest. The only difference is you're not going to get the communication back from the board of review. You're not going to get the emails. And a lot of people say, well, that's great. I don't want to give my email to the board of review. But to submit an appeal as a guest, you still have to give your email twice. So it doesn't get you off the hook for that. And obviously, you're going to give other information, your PIN, your address, your phone number, and things like that. So I don't really see the advantage of submitting an appeal as a guest, but we still have it on there as an option. If you were able to scroll down on this page, you would see pre-registration townships and all the townships that are not open yet, or all the townships would be in there. Pre-file townships would be every township that isn't open yet would be listed there. And then underneath that would be townships that are currently open. And then underneath that would be closed townships. So you can see what's going on in the whole county there. So if you log in, register, you're going to get this next screen where username and password. If you don't remember your username and password, call the number. It's right there, 312-603-5542. We'll have that up a few more times here, so don't feel like you have to write that down. It'll be included. If you wanted, well, here, I'll just tell you a little story about that. So when I came into this position about 14 months ago, I had filed property taxes in the past, or appeals for myself in the past, several times. And when I couldn't remember my username and password, I called the phone number and asked, and I gave them my information. I had 3 accounts. So, I understand that people forget their login information and their password information. The ability there is to go and find that number. If you're a brand new user, you click register here. And it's going to ask you, the next screen, it's not on here, but it'll ask you to create your username and password. And I would ask you to write that down, keep it somewhere. It's not super sensitive. There's not going to be a whole lot of, like I said, the property tax system is pretty transparent. So even if someone had your username and your password, it's not very important. You're going to put your name, your email, your address. You're going to confirm it. There's going to be a little box in there that says, are you an attorney? Likely you're going to say, do not register as an attorney. And then you're going to hit submit. And it's going to bring you to this screen. So whether you logged in because you were a user prior or you just created your your account, you're going to get this screen. The second tab there, My Appeals, is if you had registered in the past. This is where you go to see your history of all your appeals. We will keep that there. That's one of the advantages of registering as well. You have a history of all your appeals. If you don't need to worry about that, you don't care about that, you just go to submit appeal after you logged in. Okay, and then it's going to take you to the next screen here. This is the screen where you're going to put in just a few pieces of information on here. The first item there is a drop-down menu that says, please select the type of appeal. If you drop down that menu, it's just going to say property overassessed. It's the only option. I don't even know why it's a drop-down menu. If your property was underassessed, you likely wouldn't be filing an appeal. Then you put your PIN in there. That's your property index number. You'll see that on your property tax bills. It's likely on your closing statement. It's probably in a ton of papers. I'll show you. We have a second installment tax bill here in a second. Again, you're going to check this box. You're not an attorney. Hit that you're not a robot, and you're going to get this next screen. This next screen could be confusing for people. This is not a place to list your comparables. And in fact, we just added that red language in there because people are putting comparables in there. This screen is if your property has 2 pins attached to it. And this happens sometimes in more so in the suburbs than the city, where there was 2 parcels and they built an improvement or a house in the middle of it, and it's still 2 pins. We would want to know what's called an associated pin if this happens to you. This is where you'd put the associated pin. That drop-down menu also has an option for no. So if you only have one pin attached to your property, you would just hit no and hit submit. This is really the final screen. So you're going to put your name in here, your address, again, your city, your zip, your phone number, your email address, confirm your email address. The done button is a little lower now. So a little lower than this, underneath your email address, is going to be a box asking if you want a hearing. So everybody in Cook County is entitled to a hearing at the Board of Review. Now, we hope you reserve hearings for important issues, unique issues with your property. If it's just based on uniformity, it's probably not ripe for a hearing, but you are legally entitled to a hearing at the Board of Review. Before you hit done, there's going to be another box whether you want to submit evidence. And this is where you'd be able to submit your evidence, whether it's closing statements, whether it's your comps, whether it's, the things we talked about, factual error or vacancy issues. That's where you'd put your information. Then you'd hit done. So this is the second installment of property tax bill. The second installments are important. They have a little more information than the first one. So the first one that we all should be receiving really soon, probably in the next week, because those taxes are due March 1st, I believe, is just 55% of the prior year. It doesn't have much detail on it. That's all it says is send me your money. But the second one is where you can really dial into where your money's going and what's going on with your property. So you'll see school districts are generally the highest recipient of our property tax dollars. But in the second installment, you also see your exemptions, and you'll see the state equalizer. You'll see the tax rate for that particular year. So the second installments are really important. Hopefully, they're probably going to be delayed this year, and we'll figure that out, I think, in the months to come. But that's why the second installment property tax bill is really important. Like I said, we still take paper complaints. If you go to boardofreview.com and you look up top and you see forms, if you click on forms, you're going to get a paper complaint is one of the options. This is what it looks like. The most important items on here, obviously, is your name, address, your PIN, and your signature. Those are the most important things that we need on here. Off to the right is a list where you'd put associated PINs if you had, again, a property with multiple PINs. It's not for comparables on the right side there. And then anything below the red line is for attorneys only. So you do not need to worry about anything below the red line. You'd mail this in, address right there, 118 North Clark. You request a hearing if you want. There's condo appeals. When we do condo appeals and townhome appeals, are a little different animal than regular houses. Condos usually have associations. There's percentages of interest involved that are created when condos are built, and there's declarations involved. So there's a little different methodology for condominiums. I'm not going to spend much time on this. We do have specific people on staff that are trained just to do condos and townhomes because it is a different animal. And large townhome associations and condo associations, people file individually, and we need to keep those kind of uniform. And if they're all filing individually, we didn't keep track of that, it could cause havoc. So our condo teams are in constant communication on larger projects. So some of the guidelines for appeals, I touched on this in the beginning. You can only file your appeal on your own property, or if you hire an attorney, they can file it on your behalf. So if you're a corporation, you need to hire an attorney. At the Board of Review, we do not accept consultants. So what a consultant is someone who's not an attorney and who's not the homeowner, but has a side hustle, call it, to file appeals. It's a little confusing because the assessor is fine with consultants. Consultants can file all day at the assessor. And when you get a consultant, they'll say, let me file your appeal. And they can file it at the assessor, but that's the limit of it. If they come to the Board of Review, we're likely going to kick it out and you're not going to get your case heard. So don't use a consultant. If you don't pre-file, as I mentioned, Palos is not open yet at the Board of Review. So it's only in what we call pre-file status. So you can file, everyone could file tonight after this call if they want. They can file it while we're on here. It's just going to sit in a queue until Palos opens. And then that first day it opens, we're going to unleash the queue. It's going to fill our inboxes. And then there's 30 days. And Assessor Maloney will be really busy and the commissioners will be really busy. But 30 days is only the only window you have for that. Once that window closes, there is no more pre-file or anything like that. Your opportunity is gone. Again, you have to file at the Board of Review for us to be able to take jurisdiction of it. You're eligible for a hearing if you want for any reason. It's by law. If you fail to ask for a hearing at the time you file, you can always get a hearing at it up until the date that your township is closed. So if you forget to add a hearing, or you remember something that's really important and you want to call a hearing, you can call the Board of Review and we can get it back. We can get a hearing attached to it. So all is not lost. This is one of the misconceptions that happens is Cook County is broken up in 3 Board of Review districts. Commissioner Went is in district number 1, which is mostly the western suburbs and then up north. Palos is like the southern boundary of her district. So when appeals come to the Board of Review, we don't hear just District 1 appeals. And that's by design, and that's a good thing. So all the appeals that come in, we have a randomized program. It randomizes the appeals and sends them to all 3 commissioner staffs. I mean, you can imagine if we heard just District 1 appeals, well, we would probably favor District 1 and give everyone a reduction because we don't care about 2 or 3. That's not the case. I mean, we care about all the districts. So this randomizing is a really good thing. But so every appeal has a rotation, and whatever district hears it first goes through the analysis, makes a decision, sends it on, and it goes to what we call our second cut. That second analyst is going to look at it. Whatever district they're from, they're going to look at it. They're going to look at the first analyst, decide if they agree. If they agree, that's great. That's 2 out of 3. That's a majority. So likely that is going to stand. The third person to look at it, unless they find an error, really doesn't have a say in the decision. It's already been decided. There's a lot of cases where the first and second analysts don't agree, and the third is what we call the jump ball. They have to make a decision. Do you agree with 1, 2, or do you have your own idea? And in that case, it usually gets escalated up to the chiefs of staff. So we look, all 3 districts look at them, and it's got to be a majority rule. So the most common errors are obvious, right? You use the wrong mailing address. You transpose some of the PIN numbers or things like that. Filing multiple times on the same property can cause some headaches. This happens sometimes when people forgot they hired an attorney. We will, but we're going to take the homeowner's appeal over anybody's. So if we get multiple appeals, if you're the homeowner, we're going to take that appeal. So even if the attorney sends you a bill and you appealed it on your own, you're not liable for that bill. I touched on it briefly on that second installment. We don't spend a lot of time of exemptions, but I include this here because I think it's important and it really generates a lot of questions. But exemptions are all the jurisdiction of the assessor. The Board of Review has no say on any exemptions. We don't get to say they're good, they're bad, grant them, take them away, anything like that. We see them on there, and it comes before us a lot, but we don't have the jurisdiction to do anything on this. But they're really important for people, so we just put that in this slide here. So hopefully when you're looking through it, you may realize that you qualify for some of them, and that's something you want to take up at the assessor's office. So I leave you with this. When your townships are open, file your appeals, be cognizant of the dates, be cognizant of your townships and the schedules. It's a fluid process year to year. We don't follow a normal calendar. We're dependent on different agencies within the county. So you can't just say, well, hey, it was open last year between May 1st and May 30th. It's going to be the same. It's not. 99% of the time, it's not going to be the same. So don't rely on that. If you pre-file or if you register, you'll be notified. If you pre-file, you don't have to worry about it. So that's why I recommend that. Once your township closes, our process is going to take anywhere from 8 to 16 weeks. And then you're going to get a result. It's either going to be mailed or you'll get the email saying your result is in. You can go look at it. If you register, you'll get that email. Any reductions that the Board of Review grants, you're going to see that on your second installment tax bill. And again, we will not increase your assessment. It's either going to remain the same or decrease. This is our communication slide. It's a good chance for people if they want to take a picture of it. Hopefully these slides are going to be available at the assessor, township assessor, and the commissioners may have it on their websites as well. But these are the ways to get a hold of us. We're working on a TikTok and an Insta. So, maybe sometime in the future, trying to, get into that younger demographic. but in all seriousness, I have no idea what TikTok is. My kids will tell me that. But so feel free to contact us, email. We have videos on YouTube on these presentations that we put on in the past. We do prefer to do them in person, but for obvious reasons, we can't do that right now. The phone number is there as well, 603-5542. That's the switchboard of the Board of Review. I can't guarantee somebody's always going to answer it. You can leave a message, and I am told they were returned within 24 hours. It's the same number that you would use for a password reset as well, 603-5542. So feel free to give that a call, but you can reach out to Tammy's staff at info@BORD1, that's BOR District 1 at cookcountyil.gov. That's our direct email for our staff. Also, Commissioner Wynn at Tammy Wynn BOR on Twitter. So, and we do have this new cool thing, text messages. So if you text the letters BOR, Board of Review, BOR, to 74121, we can put you on our text list. And we send out as townships are opening and closing information, things like that. We don't send a lot of stuff out, and we don't, quite frankly, we don't email a lot of stuff out either, only for holding these types of functions or important dates are coming up. So we don't want to inundate you with all that junk. So that concludes the presentation. The Cook County Board of Review is here for you. You pay our salaries. We were created to help. We were statutorily created to help you appeal your taxes. We are your appellate court. You may not always be happy with our decisions, but it's really important that our agency exists. So we eat, breathe, and drink and talk about property taxes all day long. We're a staff of about 150 total people. We have a very small budget relatively within the county, and but we have some of the best professionals, and we have a really professional staff here in the first district for Commissioner Wentz. So I appreciate your time. These are really important. I hope everyone here learned something and is available, and just know that we're available to help you in the future. The assessor's office is available to help you. The commissioners, Miller and Commissioner Morrison, thank you again for showing up tonight or having your people here. And until next time, thank you, be well, and take care. Thank you.